Thomas Aquinas, one of the most revolutionary figures in the inception of modern philosophy. He is considered the Catholic Church's greatest theologian and philosopher of all time. His ideas about religion and ethics thrust the civilized world into a new realm of philosophical inquiry. Here is the story of a man who single-handedly changed the world with nothing but a quill and paper. Even from the beginning of his life, Thomas proved to be unique from the rest of his family. So, describe to me your family.
My parents were minor royalty, but I could trace my lineage back to the Holy Roman Emperors. All of my brothers became military men, so naturally my family felt it necessary to put me on the path to abbotcy. However, not even the walls of the monastery could defend against the common, bloody wars between the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor.
To escape the conflict ravaging the Italian countryside, Thomas was transferred to a general university.
It was here that I was introduced to the enlightening philosophers such as Aristotle and Averroes. I realized I wanted to become a Dominican.
St. Thomas's family did not respond kindly to these strange aspirations. His family locked him in his room and attempted to dissuade him. These attempts, however, proved futile against his strong, unyielding will. Losing all hope, his mother decided to let him leave and disguised it as an escape in order to save the family's dignity.
After this fortunate turn of events, I immediately took to Paris, the center of knowledge.
St. Thomas's teaching took him around Europe, from Cologne to Rome. He quickly developed a name for himself as well as a vast array of honorary titles.
These titles were sufficient, but I really wanted to work on my magnum opus, work that would be read around the world.
This magnum opus was the Summa Theologica. Tell me a little about the Summa Theologica.
Well, it's divided into three main parts: God, ethics, and Christ. So there's 5 important aspects when it comes to God. 1, God is simple, without composition or parts. No body, no soul, no matter, no form. 2, God's perfect, lacking nothing. That means God's distinguished from other beings on account of God's complete actuality. 3, God is infinite. That is, God is not finite in the ways that created beings are physically, intellectually, and emotionally. This infinity is to be distinguished from the infinity of size or the infinity of number. 4, God is immutable, incapable of change on the levels of God's existence and character. And finally, 5, God is one, without diversification within God's self. The unity of God is such that God's existence is the same as God's existence. In my own words, in itself the proposition God exists is necessarily true, for in its subject and predicate are the same. So ethics are the manifestation of man's free will. I believe that man's ultimate goal is striving for the highest end. This striving is the product of the chain of free actions that stems from man's creation. In judging whether these actions are good or not, I borrow a little from the great philosopher Aristotle. Human acts are good inasmuch they exemplify God and his teachings. Actions are evil inasmuch they deviate from reason and his divine law. This is how we characterize sin. Sin originates from man's will. If they truly will such an irrational and unholy act, then they are guilty of committing a mortal sin. If he is committing an evil out of ignorance, then the sin is but a venial sin. The crux of the matter is man's will. That determines the gravity of evil an action holds. Christ was not the only way to bring the people back to God, but it was the best way, both in instruction and satisfaction. He serves as a unification of human nature along with God's divine will. Jesus is the example of the highest a human can achieve, the head of humanity, and the example of a perfect man. God put Jesus on this earth to give us, humanity, a physical, living, breathing example of the closest man can be to God.
Late in life, while St. Thomas was working on the 3rd part of his Summa Theologica, it is said that Christ spoke to him during Mass one day. After this, something seems to have happened, though St. Thomas refused to speak of it. When he refused to continue his writings, Reginald of Piperno begged him to return to work. To this, Thomas replied,
Reginald, I cannot, because all that I have written seems like straw to me.
It is believed that this behavior was associated with a supernatural experience with God. St. Thomas worked on the Summa Theologica from 1265 until the end of his life. For his vast philosophical work on the origin and manifestations of God, he was awarded with the title of Doctor Universalis. Only 33 individuals were ever awarded with this title. St. Thomas died at the age of 49 after hitting his head on a low-hanging branch when he was riding a donkey. On that day, a great and magnificent force in theology and philosophy passed away. However, St. Thomas left behind a legacy that changed the way we think today.